Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be talking about pre-releases, again. So pre-releases are that magical time of the year where a new set is upon us and they allow us to be able to play with some of the new cards in a sealed and limited experience. So this only applies to mainline boosters, not any extra boosters or supplementary products outside of that, but it's still pretty exciting all around to be able to see what the new set has to offer. So on the World website, there is an event page that gives you all of the breakdowns as far as what the event is, the participation prizes, all of the supplementary stuff included in it. So you might want to check that out for more information outside of what I'm going to be giving you inside of this video, which is going to help you figure out how to be able to optimize your pre-release experience. So I think this pre-release is pretty spicy just because the entry promo is going to be a reprint of the Starter Deck 1 Greymon, which is a highly sought after and desired card. Whether that card is actually going to be legal for your pre-release is up to your TO, so you might want to ask them if that card is legal or not. But as far as the other thing that you're going to be getting for participating, it's going to be a pre-release pack. These cards should be legal because they're cards already within the set, so this is going to contain one uncommon card and one rare card with the pre-release stamp. Then the winner card is going to be the BT11 in nice full art. So it's just another decent special card that's getting the nice full art treatment. So what exactly is a sealed format and what does it look like in Digimon? So sealed play, you're basically just given a number of packs. In this case, it's going to be 6 packs, and you're going to be opening up those 6 packs, and that's the pool of cards that you have to work with in order to be able to construct a deck. As far as the deck that you're constructing, it's going to be a 40-card deck instead of your usual 50. Your egg deck is going to still be 0 to 5 eggs, and there are no ban and restrictions, and you can include any number of the same numbered cards as you want, so you're just basically allowed to play with whatever that you're given. Then as far as how the tournament is going to be ran, it is going to be Swiss format matchmaking, so the more wins that you have, the stronger the opponent is going to be. Then you're also going to have a sideboard, which is basically going to contain of all of the cards that you didn't use for your main deck. And then outside of that, you obviously get to keep all of the cards that you opened. And then there are a couple of special rules that you should be aware of when playing in this sealed and limited environment. So with sealed play, you get to ignore Digivolution on color requirements. So this is pretty decent because Digimon ordinarily is hardlined to want you to Digivolve by color. And this just basically opens up evolution to be a little bit more freeform. But you do have to still pay attention to the color requirements on the text of a card. If a card is specifically stating it needs a red X, a blue X, a green X, doesn't necessarily matter what X is, as long as it's referencing a card by color, you still have to abide by that color restriction. Then when it comes to DNA digivolving, it is basically like a normal digivolution, and you can ignore color requirements for this as well, just to be able to make the mechanic a little bit more smooth and clean. Then outside of that, you also have some extra usability on your cards in sealed format. So if you don't have a Digi-Egg, you actually could breed and raise a level 3 Digimon. You won't get the card draw out of it, but it still allows you to use that level 3 to be able to hide a stack in your raising area, which is pretty decent. So there's just a couple of small changes that were made to the game to be able to adopt the sealed format, just because you're not always going to be able to have everything you need to be able to build basically a constructed ready deck. So the links to the website and the document will be in the description below, but usually when you're going into a sealed and limited environment, you're going to want to study and know exactly the types of cards that you're going to be working with that's going to be inside of the set. So you could go to basically any database and kind of just skim through all of the cards that are going to be in the set, so that way you have a general idea on the synergies that you would have access to and to the type of cards that you're going to be looking looking for. So I think the set is going to be a pretty interesting experience, just because a lot of the same color cards are going to want to play with the same color cards, so there is more color-based synergy in this set. So it's not like some of the card effects are going to be triggering 100% of the time, utilized with other colors. Then all of the Digi-Eggs, as an example, are pretty much useless. You're almost never going to really be able to get their abilities off because they are looking for more specific types of cards and how these cards are going to be used. So that's a little bit of an unfortunate thing, but the Digi-Egg slot is mostly just to be able to utilize the raising area anyway and be able to get a draw with your level 3. Then there is an acronym in Magic the Gathering that they use for their sealed and limited experience that I think applies to ours, which is going to be bread. So this is a philosophy that goes into how you want to evaluate cards and your deck building process. So the B is going to stand for bombs. So these are going to be basically your big late game cards that are going to have high levels of impact when they hit the field, and usually when they hit the field they could swing the game in your favor. So these are going to be on most of your high level Digimon. R is going to be removal. So basically any card that has the ability to get rid of bodies off the field is going to be super valuable, so that way you could try to be able to deal with any threat that the opponent is going to have. Most of the time these are going to be in option form, but Digimon on the high levels are also going to be able to do this in some capacity, so you're going to have a decently high value on specific cards that are going to be able to help you remove bodies off the field. When it comes to the options, you do also have to meet the color requirements of the card, so you do have to keep that in mind when you're weighing if you want your removal to be in Digimon form off of your Digimon's abilities or option form with your option cards. Then E is going to stand for evasion. So evasion in Digimon, I just equate to your defensive cards. So the Digimon that have more defensive abilities to try to stop the opponent from wanting to utilize some of their cards in a particular manner. So the best instance of this is going to be on blockers. So anything that usually says blockers or anything that has the ability to be able to redirect is going to be super valuable, just because it's going to try to use your cards to stop the opponent from wanting to make specific actions, so that way you could be able to take advantage of that situation yourself. Next is A for aggro. So in Digimon, these are going to be your lower curved cards, just because if the opponent is trying to build their big Digimon up, you could potentially spawn multiple bodies on the field while they're spawning their one big body. Or these are also going to be your more tempo efficient cards, so that way you could try to build your stack quicker than your opponent, so that way you could be more aggressive with. So whether that's in the form of highly statted vanilla cards, or it's going to be in tempo efficient cards, those are just what I equate aggressive lines of play could mean. And then D stands for duds. So these are the cards that usually sound really good, but they generally will have a low level of impact compared to some various other cards, just because you won't be able to take advantage of its abilities at all. Duds are also the cards that generally are really poorly statted cards, so they're going to be a little bit more expensive and less efficient than your average card. Then, when it comes to looking at a database and looking at the pool of cards that you're going to have access to, usually I really want to focus on the commons, uncommons, and rares, because those are the cards that you're more likely to see when you're opening up your packs. We already know that booster box ratios, you're usually going to see an average of 7 SRs per box, so that equates to about every 2.5 packs, you're going to see an SR. So SRs and trying to line up those synergies aren't necessarily the most applicable, and even if you do see one, it might not be the one that you're looking for that would best synergize with your deck. And because Digimon is usually a archetype heavy, there are subsets of cards that want to try to play around with each other. So this set in particular has some pretty interesting crossovers where the colors generally want to play a little bit more in with each other than in previous sets before, to try to make for a more cohesive experience, in my opinion. So you have the whole vaccine sub-theme, where you get to utilize birds and beasts together, which is the majority of red. Then you also have the cross mechanic and trying to utilize Shoutmon in combination with blue flares, which is also leaning into what blue's trying to do, and blue is also trying to play around with Tamers, whether it's the Galmon or the Vmon line. So there's that crossover synergy as well, on top of some good Greymon-based synergy, just because we do have a couple of Greymons to try to take advantage of some of the Greymon-based synergies in Black that Black is wanting to try to play around with. Cross Hearts extends to more than just red and blue, though, and you also have Cross Hearts in yellow and purple as well to be playing around with. Yellow is mostly just trying to play around with Mastimon or Sukamon, which those two strategies are doing two completely different things, so there's not a whole lot of good cohesion when it comes to what yellow is trying to do. Then when it comes to green, green is also another color that wants to try to play around with Tamers and try to set up Tamers, so it also could be a good color to splash in with red or blue, because they're colors that also want to try to be able to play with Tamers, as long as you have the proper Tamer to be able to make those abilities work in the first place. Black is pretty interesting because it also is trying to support a lot of other setups. So Black is where you're going to have some more Greymons. Then on top of that, Black also has a little bit of Sukamon support, on top of the fact that Black is also going to have Vemmon. So Vemmon is going to be a card you kind of don't necessarily want to be playing around with a whole lot of, just because outside of utilizing it in its own package, it's not necessarily going to be that great of a card to want to think about utilizing. But Black still has some other pretty decent tools that could cross over with a lot of other colors, just because of that Tamer-based synergy. And purple is trying to be, again, split between a couple of different directions. It has a little bit of cross support, it has some Bagra support, and then on top of that, it has some Mastis support and some other general cards that you could try to lean into, just because purple has some pretty decent strategies that could help support some other colors as well. And then this is where some of the awkwardness of the sealed experience starts leaking in, just because a lot of the cards either are asking cards outside of the set for some support, like the Greymons asking for actual Greymons that aren't actually in the set, and even with the Tamers, a lot of the Digimon in this set more specifically want to be interacting with their main Tamer, so a lot of the red cards want to be playing around with Akiho, a lot of the blue cards want to be playing around with Nokia, which is a secret rare, which you're less likely to see than a super rare, but you have Nikolai as another good blue Tamer, who mostly just wants to support what Gao is doing in the set, on top of Taiga actually being one of the better ones because he's just playing around with green cards in general. Analog Man is trying to play around with the Machine Dramon stuff. Yuya is wanting to be played around with Greymon stuff, and you have Taiki Kari and Nene as a Tamer that wants to be supporting the cross-based decks. Then, as I stated before, with option cards, options are usually the last cards I think about, just because I want to try focusing on the cards that have a higher level of playability, just because you still have to focus on the fact that they need the specific color on the field, whether it's the Tamer on the field, a Digimon on the field, or a Digimon in Raising. You need to have that color representation in order to utilize the option to begin with, so that just makes them a little bit harder to generally play. But a lot of the deck building when it comes to a sealed experience is just examining the pool of cards that you have access to and trying to line up the synergies that the cards are playing around with to best support a cohesive strategy as well as you possibly can. So that way you could try to form as cohesive of a deck as you can possibly make out of the mishmash that you're given. And that's just half the fun of what Sealed and Limited is just trying to be able to create something basically out of nothing. Even if it is a little clunky and awkward at times, that's just the appeal to how this type of environment is played around with, just because everyone is in that same particular situation as you are. And then BT11 is a little bit on the special side in terms of what's inside of the boosters and what you could possibly pull, just because we do have basically the equivalent of BT7's campaign rares in the form of some reprints with the second anniversary alternate art pull. So you could possibly find some of these cards inside of your sealed packs, which they would then be legal for you to use. But I believe that similarly to campaign rares, you're only expected to see about 1 or 2 per box, so don't necessarily count on always seeing these cards if you're trying to plan or base your strategy in your head around any of these cards. And then, depending on the types of cards that you see, you're generally going to want to try to stick to a particular ratio, so that way you could try to curve out as best as you possibly can, and to not necessarily lose out on tempo. Since the deck size is reduced from 50 to 40, and to the fact that Digimon have more playability compared to the other types of cards, means that you're going to want to focus on your Digimon more often than Tamers or options. But again, depending on the cards that you pull, and how many of each different level that you have and what you have access to, again, this is all just subject to change. But the generalist ratio that you're going to want to try to work towards is 13 level 3s, 11 level 4s, 8 level 5s, 6 level 6s, and then 2 others, which is going to be your level 7s, your tamers, or your options. So again, feel free to play around with the ratio based on what you pull, but this should help mathematically get you to be in as best of a position when it comes to your deck's composition as you could possibly be in a sealed and limited environment. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.